I just want to point out, I think there were, please sit down, 247 films eligible for Oscar attention this year. So, numerically, the odds are against getting an Oscar nomination. But artistically, I don't know if you people have seen these films. If you haven't, please see them. And please see them on the big screen. But you can tell from the clips, this is amazing work. So seriously, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But also, because I mentioned the Oscar thing earlier, this year the Academy, it's like they introduced a new category for most popular film, and then they withdrew it. And then they signed Kevin Hart to host, and then they withdrew that. And then they announced cinematography is going to be during commercial break, and I bet you they withdraw that one too. I hope they do. But anybody, because mostly we're going to talk about work, but anyway, we want to talk about the Oscars at all, the phenomenon of Oscars or Oscars this year?
I think Sergio and I are going to be presented during the commercial break. That's not funny.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a true fact.
It's crazy. But also we'll move on. Because I know that there's a lot of film students here, or people who are starting out in the industry. And I want to hear from you guys. When you were starting out, was there a mentor who gave you a piece of advice that you're still using, either in your career or your work? Just the best piece of advice that moved you along.
I had somebody. Emile D'Antonio,
Oh, yeah.
the great documentary
Yeah.
filmmaker, father of modern America. He said one thing, work. I thought, wow, that's terrible advice, But what I finally came to realize later, what he meant was keep working. Because if you're not working in the business, you're not in the business.
And then Barry passed that advice on to me. I just told you
Did
about
I
that.
say that?
Yeah,
Work?
you did. We worked with Spike Lee for many years, and Spike was one of my early mentors, even though I studied costume designers and their films and their color palettes. But Barry told me that same thing.
It's the only piece of advice I ever had.
My theater friend said that Noel Coward said, if you're offered more than one job, take the one that pays the most. That worked for me.
I'm thinking of something that no one said to me when I was young, because people wouldn't speak to me. But working on Mary Poppins Returns, Meryl Streep came in to learn her song. And so she just came in for 4 days of rehearsal. And Scott and I were working in one room, and she was in the next room with the musical director, Paul Giamatti, and she kept rehearsing her song over and over, and she sounded perfect, but she kept doing it. So finally, on the second or third morning, I knocked on the door just with tears in my eyes, because I said, in this modern world, it is not normal to experience someone with this work ethic. And she said, well, dear, fear is a great motivator. And I think I've been living by that one all my life. I hadn't heard it put into such perfect.
Yeah.
So my DOP, my mentor told me that it's really wrong that when everybody is like you on set, don't try to please everybody, because it's always be somebody who will be not happy at all, but you have to do your job and don't think, people they are sometimes angry for 3 days, but the film will last forever.
Seamus Culhane wrote a book called Animation from Script to Screen, and he goes into technique a lot in the book, but really what it was for me was kind of a primer on work ethic, because he says the thing about animation, where it's a craft that you have to continually refine and get better at, or you do lose your ability. He said you're going to be surrounded by people in your career that just go to work and they live on that work. And he said you're the person that's going to go home and keep doing it on your own time and improving yourself, and that's the only way you're ever going to excel. And that kind of gave me a really strong boost at the beginning.
But also, I want to talk about misperceptions about your job or about Hollywood, because I think everybody's seen a still of somebody holding a boom mic over the set, and they think that's where all the sound comes from, that everything is recorded in that one session, which is not true. But when you meet people at like family reunions or something, and you tell them what you do, what's the biggest misperception about your job that people don't quite get?
People don't get anything about my job.
I was going to say sound editors and music editors. I work with music editors all the time. No one knows. I don't know what they tell their family. You know, and who could explain it? And yet they work so hard, so detailed, so endless amount of choices that you have to make every second, and yet it's a mystery to most, and it should remain that way. But I mean, meaning that you shouldn't be thinking about that stuff.
Right.
But
Yeah.
God bless them.
But Ruth, I mean, as a costume designer, because I think a lot of people, I mean, not people here in this audience, but a lot of people in general think that what you see the actors wearing is what they wore to the set that day.
Oh, yeah. They always want to ask the actors, you know, were you involved in the selection of your costume? And I say, no, they weren't. I'm not there to just please everyone. But the misconception that I'm always asked is like, did you sew all of those costumes? No, not that either.
Yeah, yeah, and Fiona, I mean, do people know what a production designer does?
Nope. Not, my kids don't know what I do. I mean, my daughter, she tries and she's always saying, oh, it was a pretty background. And I'm like, oh, what about the cups and the animals and the cars? You know, like all the stuff. But yeah, no, they don't know. I mean, it's not a helpful title in some ways. You know, it's so kind of vague, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but also, I mean, in terms of titles, because a sound mixer, I think there's actually two sound mixers, right? That there's a production sound mixer and a sound re-recording mixer.
That's right. So one starts at the very beginning and one finishes it all off at the very end. The location mixer, he's the one who records the stuff that most people think comes out of the camera. So when the actors are talking, that person's main job is to record beautiful recordings, as our mixer did, Jose Garcia, for every single line. So we need to have a perfect, clean take, and it has to be the one that the director selects. So that means every take has to be perfect and beautiful. And then Sergio and I work together as a sound editing team, gathering all the rest of the sound effects, none of which come out of the camera, very few of which are recorded by Jose Garcia on the set. Almost none of the ambiances, birds, crickets, dogs, cars, doors, footsteps, none of that stuff, certainly none of the music, not even the radio sounds, none of that is documented during the production. So everything that isn't talking has to be done by the sound editing team later. And then once all this stuff is compiled and organized and sorted and approved and selected by the filmmaker, then the sound mixers have to go and adjust the volume and the placement and the reverb of every single one of those sounds to the satisfaction of the filmmaker. And sometimes that takes a few days or a few weeks. In the case of Roma, it took a lot longer.
How long?
My friend was doing an interview and he said, so, let's see, 10 weeks. What does a 70-day final mix look like? And that's how long it took us to do the final mix for Roma. And it looks like a really long haul is what it looks like. It was very challenging and very difficult to make the movie sound the way we thought it should sound. And then we took that all apart and we made it the way Alfonso wanted it to sound.
Yeah, and actually there's a very thin line between the organic sound and the effect sound. So we preserve the organic sound. Alfonso was everything very realistic and immersive with the audience. So the idea was to prepare all the layers separate. Each sound is separate for the final mix to get at the Dolby Atmos.
But I mean, with all the changes in technology and stuff, I started at Variety in '81, and the job of a Variety reporter now is fundamentally different from what it was in '81. I mean, it's changed a huge amount. With all of you, has technology changed your job? Have the methods changed, or is it like, no, it still basically comes down to designing the costumes? It comes down to editing. Is it fundamentally the same or fundamentally 180 degrees different?
Like editing?
I mean, anything.
I mean, well, editing, I mean, you still gotta edit. You still gotta find that cut. You still gotta find those scenes. Still gotta find that rhythm. However you do it. I mean, I had an argument with somebody about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse because I don't know how much of that was drawn or how much that was edited on something. But whether it's drawn or not, you still gotta find that rhythm, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the artistry stays the same. The decisions you make as an artist, goes across the board. No matter how different the technology changes and how you create something, you still have to make decisions about color, texture, palette, composition, and that's the core of who you are as an artist. And even though they have a faster way of doing it, you still want to depend on that when you're making those decisions.
But Patricia, has your job, the hair and makeup, has that fundamentally changed? I mean, there's certainly new material now that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Well, absolutely, for prosthetics, there's a great deal that has changed. But I think, like you said, it all really comes back to the fundamentals and creating. So anyone that's new in any of this, get in there and do whatever you can. The job might seem mundane or silly or whatever. Just get in there. Greg Cannon would tell you, start building things. Don't hold back. Learn all your tools. Learn all the chemicals. Really know your trade and your craft. And same with hairstylists. I don't know if we have any hairstylists here, but get back and do your pin curls and finger waves, because you never know what period you're going to do.
I mean, it's a craft. It's an art, but it's a craft too. True?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything any of you wanted to add? Because I mean, seriously, what you guys have done, I mean, the clips just tip of the iceberg. I mean, the amazing work you guys did this year, but certainly all in your careers. I mean, give yourselves a big pat on the back. But is there anything any of you wanted to add? Yeah, I give each other a pat on the back. I think that's a good idea too. But seriously, but tell me if there's anything else to tell these people that they should know about your work, about Hollywood, about movie going, about movie watching.
How much time do we have? I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, everything that everybody does up here is complicated, and most of the time it takes years to learn. And there's so much detail. You're basically recreating a world, whether or not it's a world in sound, or whether or not it's a world in costume, or whether or not you're taking Christian Bale and turning him into Dick Cheney.
That guy, Satan.
I mean, and you start with the script, and you're constantly creating a world, right? Animation.
Yeah.
It's a world, and it's detail, and it's minute detail that works.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good note to kind of wrap things up, because I mean, seriously, when choosing the honorees for the Artisan Awards, it wasn't easy because there was a lot of great work this year. But you guys did exceptional work. And so again, I mean, thank you, congratulations, and let's bring them out their artisan trophies. And again, thank you all for coming.
Tim, I would like to acknowledge to Tim your moderation tonight. Thank you so much. It's brilliant. And thanks to all of the honorees for being here. What a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
It is wonderful. And thank you to the audience for coming out in the rain and being so supportive. Thank you.